Good afternoon, everybody. Really happy to see so many people here for this critical event on critical minerals. So we are talking about some important issues here today. We have a great panel and presenters. And first, I just wanted to mention that, as you can see on the slide, this is a project, or some of the presentations and some of the work we are doing for this event is based on this project, Critical Minerals in the Arctic, Challenges and Perspectives for the Nordic Countries. This is funded by Nordforsk, and we are very happy to do this work, and it's led by the Fridtjof Nansen Institute, where I am a research professor, and we have partner institutions in Finland, in Denmark, and also in Norway, and also in Sweden. So this is just a little bit of a background. So let's move to today's topic, which is a very hot topic, I think, these days. And we know that there is agreement globally on the need to phase out the fossil fuels based economy to meet the climate change goals set out in the UNFCCC, the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, and also the Paris Agreement. And there's an increasing demand for rare earths and critical minerals for the green transition. And due to the geostrategic considerations and efforts to reduce dependence on external actors, we see there's a great wish to explore new resource frontiers, and such as the Arctic. So the geopolitical changes over the past few years have impacted how states assess their vulnerabilities in relation to technology and raw materials. And the competition between China and the US in particular has dominated, China's dominance in the supply chains, extraction of minerals, have contributed to this situation, or these debates, and the situation we are in today. So extracting critical minerals in the Arctic could contribute to the green transition, but also raises serious environmental sustainability concerns, and also may infringe upon the rights of indigenous peoples and other local communities. And today we have an excellent group of speakers here, and a very esteemed panel that will comment and answer some of the questions we raise. What we do now is, I think we can start with the first presentation, but okay, let me just say that we have first the presentations, and then the panelists will come up here, and then we have the questions, and if we have time at the end, we have a really full agenda, so I'm not sure if we'll have time for questions and answers, but we will see. So the first one out is my colleague, Iselin Stensdal, who's a senior researcher at the Fridtjof Nansen Institute, who will speak about geopolitical snapshot. It's coming up, I think. The battle for cobalt in Congo between China and the US. So, Iselin, please, the floor is yours. No, don't fall.
Hi, everyone, and good afternoon. So, this work is partially done with the intern we had last year, Leonora Lafton. I just want to sort of mention her. And also, why are we bringing the Congo into an Arctic conference? We thought this could be a backdrop, just so we can understand more of the superpower battle for these critical minerals. Yes, but before I begin, because now I will be talking about country and deals, I just want to acknowledge the amount of human suffering that's going on in Congo with the mining. It should not be forgotten, although we're sort of talking about these bigger deals and everything. Right. So, why cobalt? There are many critical minerals. It's actually quite easy answers, and you've probably seen them on the street. Electric vehicles. Now, you will find cobalt in many of the modern technologies. But, if you pick up your cell phone, there's probably some cobalt in there too. However, the thing with electric vehicles is the weight of the battery. They weigh about, what does it say? 450 to 550 kilos, and maybe about 14 kilos of the battery is cobalt. And the reason why cobalt is necessary is because it's, very quickly, it keeps the battery most stable in temperature-wise. So that's kind of the explanation. We're working on, scientists are working on sort of alternatives, but for now, cobalt is the most effective one. And where do we find cobalt in the world? Well, the Democratic Republic of Congo. And since we're in an Arctic conference, I don't expect you to sort of know exactly where it is, but here you see a map. And it is currently, Congo is, the DRC, is the world's largest producer of cobalt. And quite a large population. And unfortunately, you know that the Congo has a history of exploitation of its resources going all the back to the Belgian King Leopold II with ivory and rubber. And yeah, I think it's important sort of not to repeat history. But if we fast forward a little bit and move into China, more today. So, yes, China, we're all countries who are dependent on China when it comes to the minerals that we need for our modern lifestyle. It's, as you can see on the slide, China has a large share both of the mining, but also of the refining and processing of these important minerals. And also a lot of the electric vehicle batteries that we need are produced in China. I think the last year, 2025, was like 20 million electric vehicles sold. So you can just begin, if each one has like 14 kilos of cobalt, you know, now we're getting at some serious volume. Yes, but China has a lot of minerals itself, but it also needs to import. And outward strategies. So I think beginning maybe 20, 30 years ago, maybe 20 years ago, China had this approach of a resource for infrastructure. So sort of China would promise to build, you know, roads, hospitals, and be repaid in resources. And then in 2013, Xi Jinping announced this Belt and Road Initiative, and it's a much larger and bigger project than just sort of contract-to-contract resource for infrastructure. Yes. So, China and the DRC. In 2009, there was a joint venture between called Sikomin, between Congolese SOE and two Chinese companies. And they were financed by the policy banks of China, the China Export-Import Bank, and also China Development Bank. And the joint venture was criticized. It also, over years, sort of showed that China came up short on deliveries of infrastructures. So the deal was renegotiated in 2023 and 2024. And there's also, you know, other examples. I will not go into them now. But like in total, although it's in the DRC, Chinese companies own about 80% of the cobalt output. And this is a problem for the US. The US does not have a similar joint venture in the DRC. Actually, as late as 2016, a US company, Freeport McMoran, it sold its controlling stakes of a really large copper and cobalt mine to a Chinese company. And in 2020, it sold another large mine to the same Chinese company. And this was criticized in American media. Another thing here is that the price of cobalt has been really volatile. It's fluctuated a lot. Peak price in 2018, and then again in 2022, it was quite expensive. But the past few years, it's been quite low. So the DRC, February last year, they put on a temporary ban of export just to sort of try to have the price rise a little bit. And in October, they put away the ban and put in a quota system of how much they would export instead. Right, and in swoops, the US. So in December last year, US and DRC, they signed a deal. Lots of big words, no figures. I think probably the main sort of instrument in this deal is that they will have a joint steering committee for future cobalt and different mining assets, which is supposed to give preferential treatment to US companies. And also it's been quite a busy week in Washington, I suppose, because on Wednesday, the US will hold a meeting on critical minerals where the UK has confirmed, EU has confirmed, Australia, India, South Korea, Kenya, and also the DRC. So I think we just have to, keep watching what's going on in Congo. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Iselin, for this really amazing or interesting presentation. And yeah, we'll just have to follow the developments in Congo and elsewhere, I guess, where things are happening in the world. So now it's another colleague of mine, Ida Soltvedt Vinden. She's a researcher at the Fridtjof Nansen Institute, and she will talk about deep sea mining from science fiction to reality. Well, please, Ida, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Göran. So I will give a snapshot of recent developments with a focus on the US that might bring deep sea mining from science fiction to reality. But first, just a few words on what deep sea mining actually is. So deep sea mining is the process of extracting valuable metals like cobalt, nickel, copper, manganese from mineral deposits on the ocean floor. An interest in these resources has grown in recent years because they are seen as important for the green shift and for supply security. At the same time, deep sea mining is becoming quite controversial, mainly because of environmental concerns, but also because of economic uncertainties. Yes, so as you can see from this map, seabed minerals are located both on states' continental shelves, which is the green area of this map, but also in the international seabed area beyond national jurisdiction, which is the white area of this map. Today, some countries are exploring their continental shelves, like Japan, like the Cook Islands, and as many of you know probably, Norway opened parts of its continental shelf for exploration and exploitation in 2024. But recently, the first licensing round was halted for 4 years, so exploration has not yet started. Most exploration actually takes place in the international seabed area, beyond national jurisdiction. And this area is managed collectively by the International Seabed Authority, which is mandated by the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea. So far, no commercial exploitation of seabed minerals are happening anywhere, but the International Seabed Authority has been negotiating a set of exploitation regulations for quite some time now, and once they are finalized and adopted, member states as well as companies will be able to apply for mining licenses. Yes, so for a long time, deep sea mining has belonged more to science fiction than to reality. And on the slide here, you actually see a science fiction novel that was written by Jules Verne, and it was published in 1870. In this book, Captain Nemo actually describes the vast mineral resources just lying on the ocean floor, waiting to be exploited. And I guess that in at least some ways, Verne was quite forward-looking, because what once seemed to be purely science fiction is now moving closer to becoming reality. And there are several reasons for this shift, but I will focus on one recent one, which is the US decision to accelerate exploration and commercial development of seabed minerals. Yes. So in April 2025, the Trump administration released an executive order called Unleashing America's Offshore Critical Minerals and Resources. And here, the administration argues that seabed minerals are vital for the US economy, for energy security, and also for reducing dependence on a smaller number of supplier countries. And based on this reasoning, it wants to start extraction and exploration of seabed minerals on its outer continental shelf. But what is, I think, more notable is that it also wants to expedite a process for review and issuing of exploration licenses and mining licenses in the international seabed area beyond national jurisdiction, which, as I already mentioned, is managed collectively through the International Seabed Authority under UNCLOS. And the US position is that because it never ratified UNCLOS, it is not bound by the Convention's deep sea mining regime. Mining in these areas are instead viewed as an exercise of high seas freedoms. And this already has practical consequences. At the moment, the US authorities are reviewing applications from the metals company. The metals company aims to start mining as soon as in 2027 in the international seabed area under American domestic law, not international rules. I should mention that there are disagreements as to whether this US approach is legal or if it's a breach of international customary law. But in any case, I think there are three possible implications that are worth noting. So first of all, the US is, in effect, creating a parallel system for deep sea mining beyond national jurisdiction. And this risks undermining the International Seabed Authority and the legal framework under UNCLOS. So if this US system proves faster, more efficient, then other actors might want to follow suit, especially as long as the international rules are not yet finalized. Second, the seabed minerals in the area beyond national jurisdiction are the common heritage of mankind. And this principle is meant to avoid unilateral appropriation. It's meant to ensure special consideration for developing states. And it's also meant to promote fair sharing of benefits. And now we could risk that benefits would be concentrated in the US and possibly among commercial actors mainly. Finally, the US has not before issued deep sea mining licenses, so the system is largely untested. As of now, I think the focus seems to be on speed, on streamlining, whereas in the international slower process reflects more the fact that deep sea mining is technically and scientifically complex, and to develop a management system that is robust, And long term, it just takes time, right? So, to sum up, recent US developments have brought deep sea mining closer to becoming a reality, I think. At the same time, governance in areas beyond national jurisdiction is now under growing pressure, especially when it comes to authority, benefit sharing, and urgency. Thank you.
Okay, well, thanks so much, Ida. It seems parallel systems are being established these days. So, yes, that's interesting to follow this topic as well. And many countries are interested in deep sea mining, China as well. China, I saw this article, was it in The Economist? I think it was last year or the year before. China is itching to mine the sea, the ocean floor. So now we're turning to China, actually. And China's interests in the Arctic, and does it have a lot of interest or investments, mineral investments in the Arctic? And to help us to understand this is Anders. Anders Edström, he's a researcher at Nord University, at High North Center for Business and Governance at Nord University Business School. So please enlighten us about China's investments in the Arctic.
Thank you so much, Gøril, and thank you for this opportunity to present for you about what I've been working with for a few last years about Chinese investments. And I've named the slides the China, supply chains, and the Arctic. And I will try to cover those three through these points of the agenda. Chinese investments interest, we see Arctic security drive, and also I want to present somewhat of a theoretically driven question inspired by energy security, which has had quite a long life already, and can also maybe inform on mineral investments. So what I want to show very briefly with this slide is that China in the Arctic does not really have a short history. They have been interested since being a signatory state, at least in 1925 to the Svalbard Treaty, and has contributed to scientific development. They've been accepted as an observer to the Arctic Council in 2013. And they have, as we see on the map, developed an interest when it comes to increasing the interconnectivity of the continent of Eurasia, at least, and also, as we also heard, with branches into such as Africa as well. And the red line was included at the later point than the launch of the Belt and Road Initiative in 2013. But in 2018, they presented the idea of going into this polar Silk Road. With this interest from China, what does this mean to us? China says it would like to help understand the Arctic, protect the Arctic, develop the Arctic, and contribute to the governance of the Arctic. And this also combined with such things as naming themselves a near Arctic state at some point made some, for instance, the Trump administration and so on, critical towards what was going on and giving somewhat of a pushback. And also quite recently we've seen a growing concern in the Arctic countries for what Chinese investments in the Arctic may mean also when it comes to security. So inspired by this and different kinds of narratives growing about Chinese investments in the Arctic, very often when presenting in conferences or in discussion, I've experienced to be asked, like, are there any investments though? Like, is it only Yamal, LNG, and a couple of others? But then it's always very difficult to sum up a complete picture and also to find a complete picture. I don't even think I have one myself. I'm always inviting for more information about Chinese investments. But I engaged with two other authors in a mapping exercise. Every time I read anything about the Chinese investment in the Arctic, I took notes, or I heard something, or I took note. And also, if I get some feedback today, I will take notes and take it back to my map. This is the resulting attempt at mapping these investments. And what you see here are a lot of symbols. You see some circles and squares and diamonds, among others. And also you see 3 colors: green, yellow, and red. The symbols mean different kinds of investments as described in the legend. As an example, a research station is a circle. A mining project that I will discuss today is a square. These, as I said, are given 3 colors. Red is that this project seems actually to be cancelled. While yellow, there seems to be an issue with the project. Will it even actually succeed in the end? There are some reasons to question this. And the green ones are operating today or progressing as expected. We can link, I could link this discussion, for instance, to the discussion about Greenland. We hear that Greenland must be protected so that China doesn't buy Greenland completely. And what we find in the report is that it's difficult to even find one successful one that you unequivocally can say that is successful. And I'm also joined here today by experts who can also help me realize if there is a successful project that we did not find in our report. I would be very happy to hear so. Or, yeah. Also, there are some on the North American side, but even here in recent years, some of these investment projects have not been accepted. That could, for instance, be the Hope Bay gold mine. This gold mine was denied on security grounds quite recently. Some are operating. For instance, we see a green square in Alaska, and that is the Red Dog mine. It's owned by a Canadian subsidiary of a Chinese company with a 10% ownership share. So we have been trying to catch everything. I mean, this is not much when you compare it to the story, at least on minerals and other aspects of investments in the Arctic, as this picture illustrates. One more I could mention is the diamonds you see in Norway. There are 4 of them. They belong to the same company, industrial category, or like categorized as an industrial company. But they also are engaged in mining with silicones or quartz. So, yeah. But this is the picture, and here is the report. If somebody would like to go into the nitty-gritty details, you could find it online. So this leads me to trying to link this also to energy security, and then what about mineral security? What does it say? Yes, from this critical commodity, we need to ensure we have availability of critical minerals. They are affordable. They are delivered reliably and on a sustainable basis. That is environmental sustainability, economic sustainability, and social sustainability. Also, that aspect I'm sure some of my panelists will discuss. What I find quite interesting here is the point about reliability. One way to ensure reliability, at least when it comes to energy security, is to make sure that you diversify your supply lines. So do we want only investors from one country or many countries? Maybe it's best to have investments from many different countries and many sources of supplies, so we are less vulnerable, is my question here. How do we think about this? Are we ensuring security by limiting the access of some countries that are capable of developing these resources? Also, of course, developing stockpiles and so on is one way to ensure reliability. But this is what I wanted to present when it comes to energy security, linking to mineral security, and if there is something to learn. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Anders. You are touching upon really central issues regarding energy security and also the green transition and also the need. Do we need to diversify, or can we rely on China for all things? I mean, it has been good for a long time, but now it seems, with the geopolitical changes, it is more difficult to rely on only one, or not just one country, but a lot of it comes from China. But to the geopolitical stuff and Greenland. Now we're going into Greenlandic perspectives, intersection of geopolitics, critical minerals, and the green transition. Nick Beck-Heilmann, who is a senior associate at Kaya Partners. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Joril, and thank you to the organizers for the opportunity to speak here today. My name is Nick Beck-Heilmann, born and raised in Greenland. Today, I work at Kaya Partners. Professionally, I have a background in the Greenlandic and Danish foreign ministries as China desk. At Kaya Partners, we work with the intersections of geopolitics, climate, and economics. And we work with clients who make decisions in environments where rules are shifting, politically, strategically, economically, and often at the same time. We also have deep expertise on Greenland, the Arctic, and critical raw materials. And as we have seen in the past year and in the recent weeks, these are no longer niche topics. We work across Washington, London, Copenhagen, and Nuuk. Now, turning to the topic of the day, Greenland, geopolitics, and the green agenda. As many of you know, Greenland is increasingly presented as a part of the solution to the global green transition. It's often described as a future supply of transition minerals. Minerals needed for wind turbines, batteries, electric vehicles, energy grid, core geopolitics. Yet there is often confusion between mineral potential and real supply in Greenland. If Greenland could be a climate enabler at scale, or is it mainly a potential marginal supplier with symbolic and geopolitical importance? We believe that Greenland alone is not the solution, but an important contributor. Greenland is not new to mining. Mining has taken place since the mid-19th century. Historically, cryolite, coal, zinc, and lead has been mined. Yet today, only 2 mines operate, producing gold and anorthosite, and neither produces critical minerals. But Greenland has many critical minerals in the ground. EU, US, China knows that. And Greenland has a stated ambition to develop its mining sector across successive governments. But most projects remain at the exploration stage. In Greenland, the constraints are structural, infrastructure is limited, energy systems are costly, and construction seasons are short. And mining is also political. Greenland has high environmental and labor standards. Greenland is a small society, and large projects have immense local impacts. So evidently, local consent is decisive. On the global markets, critical minerals, especially rare earths, are not particularly valuable in terms of pricing. And why is that? China controls the whole value chain from mining to the processing technology. And China, with its overcapacity, sets global prices low. We believe this has, in turn, affected the investors' willingness to engage in Greenland. The infographic shows Greenland in the middle of the global geopolitics of critical minerals and the green transition. And Greenland fits inside this triangle, also geographically. Geologically, Greenland has many of the relevant resources. Politically, it's part of the Western sphere. Institutionally, it's closely linked to Europe. And as I said, China controls the global critical mineral supply chains. The US is aggressively pursuing its own critical mineral strategy to reduce its dependence on China, and has also recently shown interest in Greenland's underground. This places Greenland in a unique position, but to unlock the potentials, the cards must be played right and at the right sequence. So how do we unlock Greenland's potentials and merge Europe's ambitions towards strategic autonomy? So we think, ideally we need a market willing to pay a green or security premium for minerals in Greenland, but this is not currently happening at a sufficient pace or scale. So at Kaya Partners, we have proposed a full value chain approach to solve the imminent problem. This would be inspired by the Chinese model, namely a horizontally integrated value chain based on strategic partnerships, for example, with Greenland. But this requires political intervention and de-risking mechanisms on EU level. And more specifically, we propose contracts for difference with a price floor and price ceiling to shield investments from Chinese intervention or price dumping. We believe this could unlock investors' willingness to engage in the Greenlandic mineral sector at scale and solve two problems at once: develop Greenland's mining economy and reduce Europe's dependence on China. I'll stop here. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much, Nick, for this very timely presentation on Greenland, which, Greenland has been in the news recently for many reasons. And actually, the project that we are working on, as I mentioned before, we are actually going to Greenland in September for the workshop collaboration. So we are very excited about that. I think that will be a good experience. So now we're moving on to the panel session, and I asked the panelists to come on stage. We have had a last-minute change in the panel. So the Sami president, Silje Karine Mutka, she was not able to participate. So at last minute, Håkon Medenia is a political advisor to the president of the Sami Council. We are very happy to have you here. And then we have Simon Holström, Senior Deep Sea Mining Policy Officer, Seas at Risk. And Marianne Dobak Kvensjø, Head of the County Council of Nordland County. And Kjell Magne Grønli, Country Manager of Kings Rose, Finnmark. So we have a great panel here today. And I think to start the show, we will start with Håkon, I think. So we have heard many things about climate change, the green transition, becoming less dependent upon China. There's a growing focus on the minerals in the Arctic, in the Nordic Arctic, in Sápmi, Finland, Sweden, and Norway. And that has the potential to impact on the indigenous people's livelihoods and on the environment, on human rights, on cultural heritage. So what we would like to know is climate change and the green transition. Is it only an excuse for developers to carry out extractive mineral projects in the Nordic Arctic? And related to this, is there actually a place for mining in the Arctic from the point of view of indigenous peoples?
Yeah,
that's a big question, but
that's a very big question. Thanks for that. But it's a great question. First, I would like to address that the Sami people are very much interested in cutting climate emissions. And I think most of us realize that rare earth minerals, critical minerals, do have a part to play in cutting these emissions. So the people of the North Arctic, the Sami people, are some of the people in the world that actually feel climate change the most. This is where the climate change is happening the fastest, and the consequences are the most dramatic right now. So, of course, we are interested in cutting climate emissions. But having said that, it can't mean that we use like the green transition as like a blanket term for any and all interventions in the nature in the Arctic. Calling something green does not make its consequences disappear. That would make it greenwashing, and we're not interested in that. Mining is a very intrusive act, and it frequently conflicts with established things in the Arctic. The challenge that I think we have is to find solutions that minimize the consequences for local rights holders, the Sami people, and the nature, of course, that we all want to be a part of also in the future. So the Sami parliament maintains that no new industrial project that affects Sami people, land, or ecosystems can move forward without legitimate and transparent processes where we're a part of these processes, where we actively work towards finding good solutions that like both parties can live with. And that's what we have experienced a lot, and that's often in the media we see it, that there are conflicts emerging because of these cases, because the dialogue simply hasn't been what it should have been before these mining acts or interventions in nature take place. So that's what I would like to emphasize today, is simply that a dialogue where the Sami people and the Sami parliament are part of the process is critical going forward.
So how do you see that happen? I mean, what is how to implement this kind of?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that depends on all parties that are involved in making legislations that miners, that the Sami people, that anyone in the Arctic are a part of. So of course that includes the Sami parliament, that includes King's Rows, other mining companies. We're here we welcome any and all invites to an open dialogue where we can work towards finding good solutions together. So, yeah.
Well, that's good. I think maybe I'll go to Marianne, since you're talking about Marianne Dubankensho, head of County Council Nordland County. So on your Nordland County website, you can read that the demand for minerals, renewable energy, etc., industrial products provide great opportunities for Nordland related to the business development and to create new export avenues and jobs, etc. So as a regional government, how do you balance and see your roles and responsibilities regarding, for instance, indigenous rights? And as Håkon was mentioning right now, I mean, how do you ensure that there's a dialogue and inclusive policy making in these processes? Yeah.
Yeah, I think the balancing act, weighing different aspects, is demanding. I think it's difficult. But I also think the county council can play a role in that, because we have collaboration with the businesses, with institutions, the Sami parliament, and we also have a strong inside competence across culture, environment, business development, and security. And I think that is a solid knowledge to base on our decision makers for the politicians. And our approach in Nordland is based on 3 things. Knowledge first, no project without local support, and we have to have the value creation stay in the Nordland or the Arctic. We have to keep the job, but we have to see something given back to the local communities. And when we do that, we can see that we are together with, we are mapping. Right now we have a new geological mapping project where we are focusing on providing more detailed mapping of critical minerals, geophysical coverage, and investigate the possibility of opening historical mining in Sulatelma, in Fauske, or Bleikvis-Lia. And I think that is our responsibility to the local communities, to give them good data, good knowledge, so they can based on their planning in the future. And I think that the dialogue we have with the Sami Parliament makes us understand better the knowledge they are giving us and how we also can provide to national government, to the mining companies or other, so we can work together and not side by side, but actually do this together.
So how concretely, I mean, what do you do in this process of the policy, I mean, the dialogue, as you were mentioning? I mean, is it you meet up and you discuss and agree?
I'm not sure we always agree. Okay, I have to say that. But I do think that a better understanding of our role, and we do have the same, also the same knowledge to what we are going to base our decision on. When we are mapping, when we are having a dialogue, when we are understanding each other. But at the end, it's the politician who makes the decisions.
Final decisions.
And we have to see how the funding is, do they create any jobs, the value of the wealth and the welfare of the local communities. And I do think that we probably can do things a little bit more different, and we probably should include all the parties probably a little bit earlier. But I do think that we have a good framework in some of the dialogue we have. And I think that's something we have to just make it even better in the future.
Yeah, because we have seen recent, is mic working? Yes. Some protests around, maybe not in Nordland, but other places, that it's like in Repparfjord, Nussir, and also other places that and also, I guess, the history in Norway from Alta and other instances, maybe stakeholders were not taken into account from the beginning. So, but sometimes maybe it's not possible to agree at all. So that is a challenge, I guess, for this kind of mining. But you were mentioning also the tax, or not taxes, but that it also has to benefit the local people, and sometimes we hear about the in and out people are coming into work and they pay taxes other places. So actually, does it really benefit the local community always? These mines, that people come in and work from other places in Norway, or even maybe foreign companies coming in.
Well, it's probably both ways. I think yes, it's keeping the jobs. And it's not always the mining, but it's the synergy of other jobs. Because when people are working in the community or the local community, you create culture, you create other jobs, welfare jobs. So I think that's also something we have to consider. But I would like some more local as a benefits, yes. And I think that's a government issue. Probably not something the county council can decide alone.
Yeah. Maybe moving to, I'll ask you later afterwards, Simon, about the deep sea, but I think now we could move to Kjell Magne Grønli, country manager for King's Rose, Finnmark.
Norway.
Huh? Norway,
King's
sorry,
Rose,
yes, Norway, sorry. Not just Finnmark. Yeah. Yeah, so we see that from the King's Rose, that your company is a discovery-oriented exploration company and exploring, possibilities in the Nordic Arctic. But how do you work with local communities and indigenous peoples and governments and ensure that different voices are heard in the work that you are doing? I mean, actually, you are a company, right? So you.
Yeah, I have to. It was interesting to hear the Sami Parliament representative here saying that they want a dialogue. And we tried to get a meeting with Sami Parliament last year, and we got a meeting after several months of asking them. And when we got to that meeting, we were met by, "It's interesting to hear you, but we don't want ongoing dialogue with you. You can come to us when you have this project finally developed and it's ready to be sent to the government." So it's very interesting to hear the change from last year to now. But the way we work in Finnmark is that we have meetings with the rights holders, the reindeer herding districts. We have contacted stakeholders, and we have tried to contact local politicians, the Sami Parliament, and we have asked for guidelines from the Sami Council for FPIC, but we don't get what we ask for. We want transparency. We want to work in collaboration with the local people and local government and the Sami Parliament, but we meet closed doors.
You mean they're not interested in talking with you, or they don't
like
want to hear about it?
They say no to mining and exploration, and we don't want to hear about it. That's the conclusion.
Yeah. Okay, so how do you solve this?
Yeah, the way we have to solve this is to have an open dialogue with the rights holders. That's the only way we can do our exploration work in Finnmark for now.
Okay, and how about environmental footprints? I mean, how do you incorporate this into your work? For instance, you mentioned something about waste treatment, for instance.
Yeah,
you're looking into.
Waste treatment is when a possible mine is opened in, let's say, 20, 30 years. But we are thinking about waste management, how we treat tailings, and we have contacted the NTNU for a collaboration with them. Start to think about how we can use tailings, for example, and not just dump it in the fjord.
So kind of reuse recycling, or
reuse recycling.
Yeah.
Find some ways to use the tailings.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you think that will improve the possibility to agree on the?
It will at least improve our way of thinking sustainability and yeah.
Well, sounds good. Okay, so you have a comment, and we'll get to you, Simon, in a second.
Just to say a little bit about what Kjell Magne is saying here. You can get my number. We can get in touch after this, so we can
That's good.
Get on a dialogue.
But
I would like to emphasize that you were touched upon that the Sami people have experienced a lot of cases with Alta, with Fosen, now ongoing with Repparfjord, where we feel like we have not been heard before an intervention is put upon us in nature. And I think many Sami people, I think, are fearful of that happening again and again and again. So if you meet closed doors in Finnmark now, I would urge you to not give up simply because someone is not interested in giving you their opinions. Their opinions matter, even if they don't want to share it with you. So I think it's some of the most important things you as a mining company can do is actually to keep on with your community dialogue.
Yeah, good advice. To keep up the dialogue, yes. And now let us move to Simon Holmström, Senior Deep Sea Mining Policy Officer at Seas at Risk. And I guess now we're moving into, well, geopolitics is present in all, I think, the discussions here. Anyway, but the U.S. and is working really hard to start deep sea mining. We heard also from Ida here that the U.S. is really keen and it cites the need for competition against China. US authorities are ready to give out licenses in international waters outside, as Ida was saying, also the UN affiliated body. There's a parallel systems are being established. The International Seabed Authority is the authority on this, and it has received much international criticism. I mean, the US, I guess. Simon, so what would you say? I mean, you have called deep sea mining as a false solution to Western strategic autonomy. Why is that? And could you elaborate a little bit on this?
Yeah, thanks so much for that and for inviting me here as well. I think it was very well described, the problems that we're facing, and that extractivism and the attempts to really import geopolitical tension and extractivism in the Arctic region. It has many other consequences than just terrestrial consequences and consequences on right holders. But the deep sea cannot speak for itself. It hasn't got any right holders in that sense, more than future generations, and future generations who are to speak for them. So it has been quite a large debate for quite some while, and especially coming from international civil society organizations to take upon that role and say that, hey, the deep sea, the international deep sea, is a common heritage of humankind. That is an area that has been enshrined in international law as that heritage. And even in continental shelves, outside of economical zones, that is something that even states that have them, like for instance Norway, they are also obliged to share the benefits to other underdeveloped states or developing states that might not have the technological capacity to get those resources as well. And that is a very, very strong principle. So much so that even those countries who have not ratified the UN Law of the Sea, UNCLOS, are bound by, and especially the US, because the US signed that treaty. It didn't ratify, it signed, which means that they have to respect and they have to act in ways that do not counteract the principles that they have signed according to international law. So why is it then that the US wants to do that? Well, we heard it. It's because of the threat of China. China is one of the countries that ratified, has been working in the International Seabed Authority. That is the body that should oversee the principle of the common heritage of humankind. And by so doing, China has applied for exploration contracts, has most of all other countries, has a technological advanced system, integrated system to be able to actually also get those, if they would start with deep sea mining, that they would get also the infrastructure to get it into end-use products. And of course, the US, with new Trump administration coming to office, they said, well, we have not been able to apply for those contracts, so let's do it ourselves then, going around that system. It's quite interesting how the US is really picking and choosing things from international law. They have just a few years ago, they said, we have found, according to some biological surveys and ocean surveys, we have found more continental shelves. That is ours, according to international law. We didn't sign UNCLOS, but we will take this. And of course, that was a predecessor. That was kind of one way in which a stepping stone that then later they can say, now we're going to mine those resources as well, because that is one of the reasons why countries would like to have continental shelves. So, of course, they were pressured, and the Trump administration saw this as a part of their role to play in international governance, where they need to compete with China. The problem with the US is they don't have any reasonable way of getting those polymetallic nodules or other mineral resources from the sea into processing, into refining, into batteries. How would they do that? They have no such smelter. They have no such...
Send it to China then?
Exactly. They hold that dominance. So that is why I'm saying this is a false solution. You can mine as much as you like, but if you then send it to China, who will have the control? who will have the dependency? We will not be more strategically autonomous if we start deep sea mining now.
So how do you see this going forward? I mean, now we saw in the news that Japan also has, well, that's rare earth. They have found something on the deep. That's also an attempt, I think, to sort of be more or less, I mean, dependent upon China, for instance. I mean, there's right now the relations between Japan and China are not so great. So, of course, countries are a bit concerned that China will, put the brakes on. And we have seen that China has, export restrictions on certain minerals. So how do you see this going forward? You have Japan, you have China, you have the US. I mean, which other actors are trying to do?
That's completely legal. I mean, of course, any country can apply for a contract within the ISA for exploration activities. Any country can do exploration activities within their national jurisdiction as they see fit. Of course, there are some general obligations about strategic impact assessment, environmental impact assessment that you can't, when doing those testing things that Japan is doing, for instance, that you can't do it in any way. You have to. There are rules on that as well. Effective protection of the marine environment is one very important article in UNCLOS. So that is nothing that is problematic per se. The problematic thing, though, is that we still treat the critical raw materials and the planetary resources as endless. That we can just extract and extract and extract all the time, whilst we have waste. That's just out there, unprocessed. 25% of all electronic waste is recycled. What about the 75 other percent? There is huge potential in recycling in cobalt, in manganese, in nickel. And we also have battery chemistries that are evolving. We touched on that a little bit earlier, with sodium ion, LFP, that do not require cobalt, nickel, and actually a little bit of manganese, but not so much. So why don't we just put our money into circular economy and invest in actually reducing our dependencies through that, rather than opening new frontiers, whether it be on the sea or on land, impacting right holders, when we know that there are scalable solutions already that will create jobs in Europe, that will create the resilience that we're talking about.
So why don't we do that? What about Kjell Magne? Do you have any viewpoints on that? Working in the business?
We can. You mentioned the circular economy, and if we think about the cellular phones in Norway that is thrown away each year, they have approximately between 60 and 70 kilos of gold totally. And if we could do this urban mining with them, we could potentially earn $10 million, over 100 million Norwegian kroners. But the problem is, if you put milk in coffee, how do you separate them?
Aha.
Yeah. So it's exactly with the same problem with batteries and other minerals. How to separate them? You need large processes to
So it's
do
difficult.
that. It's very difficult. It costs a lot.
So it's easier just to extract.
But anyway, we need to think more about circular economy.
Yeah. So what do you think, Marianne? Is it possible to do it in a different way, or is it good business? I guess also to.
I think it's obviously it's a good business, but I think for me as a politician, I think when we talked about it for a couple of years ago, we talked about the businesses, we talked about industrial policy, and now it's a matter of national security.
Yes.
And I think that is quite difficult to make the shift, because then you have to prioritize a little bit different. You have to make sure that you have enough resources, critical minerals, and many have said it when we heard about China and we heard about the USA. We have to have friends on our sides. So when it's a national security issue, who are we going to let in to do the mining, to do the businesses with us? So I think that's probably the most important thing right now is the national security matters, and we have to look at it a little bit different than we just did a couple of years ago.
Yeah, so the larger picture will definitely play a role in your decisions. Regional politics, of course. I mean, as you said, the national security issue, it has kind of taken center stage, and that links to the demand for critical minerals in the Arctic, but also the security challenge for the Arctic region, and also like the NATO's third combined air operations center is also to be located in Bodø. So we see that, you know, security issues are really impacting on everything, from, you know, the national scene to the, you know, the local politics, I suppose. Yeah.
And I do think because it's you have to think about it in many sectors, not only the businesses, but we also have to get it out to the market.
Yeah.
We have to have infrastructure, digital, we have to have renewable energy, we have to have roads and railways. So it's a big question on how to make it happen.
Yeah, so back to you, Håkon, a little bit. How do you see this critical minerals, Sápmi area, you know, the impacts on livelihoods or the Sami culture, indigenous people's livelihoods going forward? Are you optimistic? Or, I mean, we were reading the Amnesty International report from 2025. It came with some general recommendations regarding land interventions in the Sami areas. That was last year, of course, but and also there's a UN report from 2025 that is a study on the rights of the indigenous peoples in the context of critical minerals to ensure a just transition. And it has many recommendations on how to proceed in this critical minerals or the minerals or dialogue, and how to, you know, to keep to protect the rights of indigenous peoples. Yeah.
Whether I'm optimistic or not, I believe there's always a solution to be found. Whether we find the agreement or not in any given case, I think depends solely on at what point of the process rights holders are involved. But I do believe that solutions could be found in any given case. For the Sami parliament to give its consent, the proposed mining project must clearly demonstrate at least two things: that it doesn't violate the rights of rights holders and indigenous peoples, and second, that the operations will cause as little harm as possible to nature in the Arctic. I mean, these are the fundamental requirements that the Sami Parliament puts forth whenever mining operations are brought forth. And we have historical examples of mines that where the Sami people, indigenous rights holders in Sápmi, have both worked at and lived more or less in harmony with these mines. But the ones we hear about are obviously the ones that where the Sami people have not been involved in the processes and where there are conflicts. And it's not strange to me that these conflicts do happen, because obviously it requires a lot of space, as we're touched upon here. It requires railroads, it requires building, it requires a lot. So I believe there are solutions to be found.
Well, that's good. So Simon, yes, I was going to ask you, but you go ahead if you have.
Yeah, I just wanted to react on what Marianne said, that we're living in a time where the security narrative is overriding all other narratives or other arguments. Like the environmental argument doesn't go as before, the social argument doesn't go as before, the indigenous and local communities right doesn't go anymore. If we really need to diversify now because of the threat to China, we just need to do it. And we deal with the consequences later. That is extremely dangerous. That is so dangerous. And I do think that we have a role to play in informing those decision makers to say, these things are security related. This is very much security related. If we do not engage in free, prior, and informed consent, then projects will strand in long process in courts. If we do not focus our efforts on product design, on longevity, on making use of the car batteries that come from the first generation of electric vehicles, and if we don't process that, the black matter, black scrap, waste that we see as waste, if we don't do that in Europe, we're sending it to China at the moment. If we don't do that in Europe, if we don't focus on circular economy, then we have a security threat. We have to bring in those topics into the security lens. I do think that that is what is needed now to influence those in power, those who think that they can override any other argument. And of course, the climate change issue is very much a security issue. And that was quite recently seen also by the UK intelligence services, is that we need to take also this seriously. If we don't do that, we're going to be in serious trouble also in terms of geopolitical issues. So geopolitics is not just the issue somewhere there. It's so interconnected, and we need to start building those connections and explain to policymakers what security really is on the ground.
Adding to that, I must say I agree with a lot of what you're saying here. But adding to that, I mean, the security argument for building more, faster, bigger, stronger, the arguments we hear a lot going around when there's talk about any kind of intervention in nature these days. I do have to agree that one forgets about the people that the security measures are for, the actual people who are feeling the consequences of these security measures, as legislators call them, because it's one thing to build and to build, for example, mines. But we have no way of telling what will happen to them in 100 years. We know we will be here in 100 years. And the mine isn't the one living with the consequences, it's the people around it. So I think for security reasons, the people living in the north are the most important that have to be taken into account in any kind of security measure going forward.
Yes, and Kjell-Magne, you had a comment.
Yeah, I had to comment to early involvement and solutions to be found. We believe in early involvement, and we really want rights holders, stakeholders, and Sami Parliament and other Sami institutions to come to the table and tell us how can we do this exploring job first. We have this timeline of exploration for let's say 10 years before we have a bigger picture of potential deposits. Then we have 10 to 15 years of planning, including making a plan for closure of a mine if a mine is opened. All of that has to be set up before we send the application to the government and ask for permission to develop a mine. So yeah.
So it's a really long process, timeline-wise. It seems. I was just looking at Sydvaranger mine that's going to open in Finnmark again, probably in 2027, and it's a timeline. I mean, it's already a mine there, but the timeline for the mine is like 25 years. And is that, or is it going to last longer? Or
yeah,
I mean, it seems to be a big impact, just to have a 25 years, but maybe it's important.
Yeah, I have visited the Sydvaranger mine, and that mine has been up and running for over 100 years.
Yes.
It has been closed a couple of times, but
now it's reopening.
It's reopening now.
Yeah.
So, for example, a company in northern Finland, they started exploring in 2004, and they are planning to open a mine if the government says yes in 2032. So it's a very long timeline. before a mine can be opened.
So in between, I mean, while we are waiting for these mines, and I mean, there is the dilemma of climate change, and you know, well, how do we deal with that? You know, we need as experts are telling us, we need and we do, I guess, need the minerals for the green transition, for renewable technologies, and much of these technologies are coming from China. But so there is a dilemma here. You know, what do we do? Do we go, you know, away from dependency on one country and try to, as soon as possible, as fast as possible? What do you think, Marianne? Is it something?
I think the Arctic, Norway, European supply security is important. So I think that we have not to be dependent on China in the future. We have to have also a supply security of critical minerals in Europe and in the Arctic. And we have to play our part. I think that's also important. But we have to do it like everybody says, we have to do it together. So we have to have a good framework and how to have the dialogue, how we're going to interact. And I do think that probably we have to invest more in the shared situation of the world to understand it together. And we also have to respect that maybe we are not always going to agree on the solution.
But is it possible to have a sustainable extraction? I mean, Norway's mineral strategy from 2023 says that Norway will be the most sustainable mining country in the world. But is it actually a possibility, or?
I have to say yes.
I have to say yes.
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Just asking the question.
Yeah, I do think it's possible. Yeah, I do think it's possible because the technology. We have to do it for the green shift, as you also mentioned. The critical minerals is an important part of the green shift and transition. But if you are going to be the best in the world, I'm not sure. I think time will tell us.
Sorry. Yeah. So, Simon, is it? I mean, do we have enough information about deep sea mining? I mean, scientifically, do we know all that could happen?
Yeah, whether it will be a solution to the supply shortages and supply shocks and diversification, that is really up to whether we have sufficient knowledge about the deep sea and whether we know that deep sea mining those very fragile areas on the planet, can be done safely. At the moment, if we ask scientists, there was just a panel about this just before, they say we find new species all the time when we go there. 0.001% of the deep sea has been properly mapped visually, and there are so many species yet to even describe. So even if you've set a Latin name on something, you need to describe it and its function in an ecosystem and describe the ecosystem services it provides. The deep sea and the ocean in general, it gives us the second breath. It's the oxygen for the second breath that we take. So we are really, if we are really continuing with this extractive agenda that we need those metals and we can't get them from in the speed that we like from terrestrial sources, we really, from what we know now, we're really going to mess up the ocean. So that is why I'm saying that we need to go to the root cause of this problem, which is the demand projections that the International Energy Agency and many others are coming out with, saying that with population increase, if we deem that everybody will have 2 electric vehicles, have phones every single year, new electrical devices for our smart homes, and if we're not going to change our behaviors, well, then of course, then those projections are probably very much true. But what if we now focus on boosting Europe's industry in actually being better at circularity? If we make it possible that the manganese, the nickel and cobalt in electrical vehicles can actually be disassembled and assembled in again very easily, and that could be done in Europe, creating jobs. If we can actually make sure that we have a material efficiency, that we can prolong the usage of these metals in the system. And if we can also make sure that we perhaps might not be, perhaps we shouldn't consume that much, then we will, we will for sure be creating conditions for future generations to also thrive on this planet. And that is real sustainability, to think at the system issues. And I think that will solve many issues on land as well, and not only on the deep sea. And we need to couple that discussion, that circularity discussion, to the security agenda, because otherwise we'll not solve this. Otherwise we will just see the Arctic region being an emergency exit for the European raw material strategy.
Yeah, so maybe it was a good thing that Norway halted the plans for deep seabed mining in Arctic waters. I guess you're not against it?
I'm very happy about
Very happy.
the application of the precautionary principle. And I'm very happy that 40 countries are supportive to a moratorium or a precautionary pause in the International Seabed Authority, which is, as you know, discussing a mining code, which would green light activities. And of course, many countries are now stressed out about the US starting unilaterally, so they would like to finish that mining code as soon as possible, so that not more countries would do unilateral behaviors. And of course, that will only cement the geopolitical struggles. If you create a mining code that is faulty when there's no environmental thresholds because the data is not there, and you will really be able to give licenses to a lot of countries that would start and make havoc in the ocean. So that is not a solution to any of the global challenges that we have at the moment. So in light of this, of course, the Norwegian decision was very welcome. And we would call on, CSID Risk would call on Norway to also make that pause permanent and to join those other 40 countries.
Yeah. So maybe, trying to wrap up this session, is there anything based on this discussion today that you would like to add or clarify? How do you see the future? I mean, based on this, what's the current situation? Maybe we can start with you. Do you have anything you would like to add, or Kjell Magne?
What I like to add is that it's positive that the Sami Parliament want us to continue our work with the rights holders, stakeholders, and others. That's very positive to hear. We openly want to engage local people, tell us how to do things, how we can possibly develop a mine, and how we can do it in a proper way in the future. Yeah.
Marianne, do you have something you would like to add?
I think the most important thing is that the local communities get the benefits in creating jobs, to make our communities attractive and include the people working there, even if they come from other countries to work in the mining or in the critical mineral business. And I think that we also have to have a discussion with the government on taxes and regulation and the framework to make it a little bit easier and probably not take that much as time. The timeline has to be a little bit shorter, but we cannot. But we have to have a dialogue with all the stakeholders to make good decisions.
Sounds good. Håkon, what about you?
Yeah, almost sounds like we're all in agreement here, though I do know for a fact that we're maybe not in all cases. But I would like to leave with this one final thought, that the Sami Parliament really wants to work towards implementing FPIC, free, prior and informed consent, in these processes. And even though there is no requirement for companies to abide by it, I would really urge companies going forward to actually follow the principles. It's really easy. And I think that would make it way better and have any processes moving forward actually rooted in communities going forward.
Okay, Silvani had a
Yeah, I had a
or?
comment to the FPIC point. We in King's Road we have received training from Protect Sápmi about FPIC, but we miss guidelines, official guidelines for FPIC, and we really want to follow FPIC. So if the Sami Parliament can set FPIC guidelines on a fast track, we will really appreciate it.
Okay, so Simon, do you have something you would like to?
Final words for
Final
the entire
words.
panel. No, I could just say personally, I don't think that Europe can, in any way outcompete China on volume of extraction, but Europe can compete on circularity, and I think that is where we should really, on all levels, including counties, focus on and create good conditions for. I think that is the way that we can also de-escalate the situation for the Arctic and for the betterment for future generations as well. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, that's circularity. That's a very good point. Volume against circularity. Actually, we have 5 more minutes before we close. I don't know if anyone has a burning question to ask the panelists or the presenters. Anyone who has a question? Yes. Please, I don't know, do we need a mic maybe? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I work in the administration of the Sami Parliament in Norway, and I have a brief comment to King's Rose and the way he tried to do some makeup of what's actually going on there, because I'm being involved in a hearing process where they had a exploration program. And both the Sami Parliament and the Reindeer Herding District said, well, you shouldn't go and drill in this area because we can have no mine here, because it is impossible, because the Reindeer Herding District is already affected very huge on a NATO military shooting field in that area. It's in Porsanger municipality. But you didn't listen to Sami Parliament or to the Reindeer Herders. You pushed the exploration process all the way to the government and to a final decision there against the will of the Sami Parliament and the affected reindeer herders. So, well, prior informed consent, this was not that. So that's one learning for you. And you can read it's lots of reports now, for example, from the expert mechanism on the rights of indigenous peoples that has done a report on that. And we have discussed this for a century. The special rapporteur on the rights of indigenous peoples already in 2014, James Anaya, made a report on how to deal with mining when indigenous people are affected. So it's like a receipt to how to do it there. Just read it. Prior informed consent, if you have that from the beginning, then the seeking of the license will go much faster. We'll fast track everything. But if you don't have it, you will be opposed, like in Repparfjord. The first time we got it on our table was 2010. And there's still no mine there, even though he has most of the licenses there. So, well, if you want to spend decades, go along without a pre-farming consent from the indigenous peoples. But if you want to fast track it, try to seek agreement. Thank you.
Would you like to respond?
Yeah, I want to give a comment to that. That permission, yes, it was. It went up to the King in Council. Yes, that's true. It was also pushed by our former director. He has now quit in King's Road. We have a new director, and we also have a new sort of agreement with the reindeer herding district that you are mentioning, and we are working on a process agreement with them. So we are taking 3 steps back, And we're starting with new sheets to make this process agreement with the reindeer herding district, and we have not drilled a hole yet. Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else who would like to comment or ask a question? No? I guess it's soon dinner time. So then it just, it's up to me, and well, what I have left to do is to thank, well, first of all, the presenters who presented first, and then the panelists for a very good, well, discussion, thoughts and suggestions for how one can move forward with some of these very challenging issues. And so thank you so much, and thank you so much to the audience who came to listen to our event. Thank you very much, and have a good evening.